He thought he was just a diplomat, until one look into her eyes unlocked a forgotten past, buried memories, a childhood lost in fire, a mysterious alien ruler who should have been a stranger, but wasn't. What if the future of two civilizations rested on a secret from long ago and a choice that could change everything? This isn't just a negotiation. It's a reckoning. Stay with us, because the stars remember what we forget. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Let's move toward wonderful story. The gentle pulse of the Lumina. Drift echoed softly beneath Joran Hale's boots as he walked the ship's long, curved corridor. It was a sound he had grown used to over the years, a faint hum that vibrated through the floor like a heartbeat. Usually it calmed him. Today, it only reminded him how fast his own heart was beating. The ship was en route to the Etherian border worlds, a place shrouded in mystery and stories too strange to believe. But Joran wasn't on a mission of exploration. He was here as a representative of the unified human alliance, tasked with meeting the High Regent of the Etherians for a peace negotiation that could shape the fate of both species. The thought made his stomach twist. Joran had seen his share of strange things. He had shaken hands with beings made of gas, eaten meals with creatures that communicated through light, and sat in negotiations where time moved backward for a few seconds. Still, nothing had ever made him as nervous as this meeting. The Etherians weren't just powerful, they were ancient, and their ruler, High Regent Taean, was spoken of in half-whispers, like a myth. She was said to be able to influence time, not control it exactly but guide its direction, like one might steer wind with a hand. It was nonsense, probably. But even if half the stories were true, Joran knew he was walking into a room with someone far beyond his understanding. He rubbed his hands together, trying to shake off the nerves. The corridor lights dimmed slightly, signaling the ship's shift into proximity space. They were nearing their destination. As he reached the observation deck, the wide doors slid open, and Commander Tava Roswell stood there, holding a mug that smelled suspiciously like overbrewed tea. She gave him a grin. "You pacing a hole in the floor again, Envoy?" she asked, lifting the mug to her lips. Joran offered a weak smile. "Just trying to stay ahead of my nerves." Tava laughed. "You're about to sit across from the most powerful being in 3 systems and you're acting like it's a job interview." He raised an eyebrow. "That's because it is." She stepped aside, letting him enter the observation room. The glass, wall stretched wide, displaying a sea of stars that seemed to drift like dust on an invisible wind. Somewhere out there, behind the stars, was a world where this High Regent waited. Joran leaned against the rail and tried to focus on his breathing. "You'll be fine," Tava said, more gently this time. "You've handled worse." "Have I?" he replied. "Because I don't remember ever negotiating with someone rumored to have seen a dozen empires rise and fall." Tava shrugged. "People exaggerate, makes the stories better." "Do they exaggerate about her eyes?" Joran asked, voice quieter now. "That they change depending on what she sees in you?" Tava didn't answer right away. She stepped beside him and stared into the stars. "Some people say her eyes hold memories, like she sees more than just your face, like she sees who you were, or who you could have been." Joran said nothing. He couldn't explain it, but ever since he had been briefed on this mission, he had felt something. A pull, almost like a forgotten dream hovering just out of reach. It wasn't just nerves or the weight of the job. It felt personal somehow. But how could it be? He had never met this regent. Before he could think more on it, the comm device on his wrist buzzed softly. He tapped it. "Envoy Hale," the voice on the other end said, crackling, with slight static. "Please report to the central hall. The Etherian vessel is preparing for arrival. Meeting begins in 30 minutes. Joran nodded, more to himself than the voice. "Understood." As he turned to leave, Tava placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't let the stories fill in blanks that aren't there," she said. "Just talk to her like you would anyone else." "Sure," he replied. "Anyone else who might be able to bend time." "Exactly," she said with a wink. The central hall of the Lumina Drift was a mixture of old human design and newer alien tech. Panels glowed with soft blue light, and a long polished table sat at the center, surrounded by chairs and a suspended holographic display of the system. Joran arrived just as the Etherian shuttle docked. He could feel the air shift like the ship itself was holding its breath. The doors opened. A tall, graceful figure stepped through, followed by 3 silent attendants. She moved with ease as if she belonged here more than the stars outside. Her robes shimmered like starlight, and her pale skin seemed to absorb the room's light rather than reflect it. But it was her eyes that stopped Joran in his tracks. They were deep, not in color but in feeling. Looking into them was like standing on the edge of a memory you couldn't name. And when her gaze met his, Joran felt it. He knew her. But that was impossible. She offered a nod, not quite a smile. "Envoy Hale," she said, her voice low and smooth. "We have much to discuss." Joran swallowed hard, his pulse pounding. "Yes," he said. "Yes, we do." Joran sat at the long table, trying to calm the thoughts racing through his mind. The central hall was quiet now, save for the gentle hum of the ship systems and the soft sound of footsteps as attendants moved about, preparing the space for formal dialogue. Across from him, High Regent Tyen sat still, her hands folded, neatly, her expression unreadable. Her attendants stood behind her like statues, silent and motionless. The room felt colder now, not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Something about her presence seemed to pull the warmth away, as though she carried with her the weight of distant stars. He tried to focus on the display floating in front of them, showing the proposed terms of a peace agreement between humanity and the Etherian Alliance. It should have been simple: trade routes, border agreements, shared technology protocols. But nothing about this felt simple. Joran's eyes drifted back to Tyen, and again their gazes met. Her eyes didn't look angry or threatening. They didn't even seem curious. They just looked knowing, like she was watching not only him, but the version of him that existed in some other time in some other place. The regent's voice broke the silence. "Your proposal speaks of peace," she said softly, her tone smooth, each word carefully chosen. "But true peace cannot be written into paper. It must be understood, it must be remembered." Joran blinked. "I agree," he replied carefully. "That's why we're here, to build that understanding." Tyen gave a slight nod. "And yet you still look at me like you are searching for something." He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Was he searching? Was that why he couldn't stop thinking about her eyes? Ever since their first meeting, the memory had been growing stronger. At first it was just a feeling, a strange tug in the back of his mind. But now small pieces were starting to surface. Flashes of fire, the sound of screaming, the smell of smoke, a child running, and someone reaching out through the chaos. A tall figure cloaked in light, lifting him up and carrying him away from the danger. He had been so young. The memory had been buried, forgotten for years. Until now. A soft voice spoke beside him, drawing him from his thoughts. It was Ambassador Vera, one of the regent's close advisors. Her tone was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Envoy Hale," she said. "Are you well? You seem distracted." Joran forced a smile. "Just thinking through the next part of the agreement," he replied. "It's a lot to consider." She didn't look convinced, but she said nothing more. Joran turned back to the regent. "May I ask you something? Off the record." Tyen's head tilted slightly. "Of course." He hesitated, then asked, "Have we met before?" The room went very still. The air itself seemed to pause. The regent's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened just slightly around each other. "No," she said after a moment. "I do not believe we have." Joran nodded slowly, but something about her voice told him otherwise. There had been a flicker in her tone, something small but real. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. like someone repeating a line they've practiced too many times. Something didn't fit. "I'm sorry," he said, glancing down. "It's just, I've been having memories. I thought they were dreams, but they feel too real, of a colony under attack. I was just a boy, and someone saved me. I never saw their face clearly, but their eyes." He looked up again. Tyen's gaze hadn't left his. "They looked like mine?" she asked. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She leaned forward slightly, her voice quieter now. "Memories can be strange things, Envoy Hale. Sometimes they are built from truth, sometimes from fear, and sometimes they are given to us." "Given," he repeated, confused. "Not all memories belong to the ones who carry them," she said. There was silence again, thick and heavy. Joran sat back in his seat, feeling like he had just stepped into a shadow he hadn't known was there. What did she mean? Was it a warning? A confession? He didn't know. But the more she spoke, the more convinced he became. She knew him, maybe not in the way people usually know each other, but somehow she had been part of his life before. The meeting continued with carefully chosen words and diplomatic phrasing, but Joran's mind was no longer focused on the terms. He couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. Not all memories belong to the ones who carry them. What did that mean? Had his memory been altered, hidden, and why? When the talks ended for the day, Tyen stood gracefully and nodded to the delegation. "We will review the remainder of your terms tomorrow. Until then, Envoy." Joran stood too, offering a polite bow. "Thank you, High Regent." She gave the faintest smile. "Rest well. Memories often come easier when the mind is quiet." And then she was gone, gliding from the room like a whisper. Joran remained still for a moment, then turned to leave. As he walked back through the corridor, the hum beneath his feet returned, steady and familiar. But his thoughts were anything but steady. The shadows behind the light had started to move, and he knew they were hiding something he needed to remember. Joran stared at the ceiling of his quarters, his eyes unfocused, his thoughts tangled in memories that didn't quite feel like his own. The soft blue light of the ship's rest cycle bathed the room in calm, but inside him everything was storm. The image had returned again, clearer this time. The colony, the screaming, the burning sky. He had been a child, maybe 7 or 8, hiding beneath a collapsed wall while chaos unfolded around him. And through the smoke a figure had emerged. Not a soldier, not a rescuer, something else. Taller than any human he'd seen, glowing in a strange light that wasn't from fire. And then those eyes, calm, silver blue, full of something that felt ancient. They looked at him with recognition, like they had been searching for him. And then he was lifted into strong arms, and everything went dark. He sat up, breathing heavily. These weren't just dreams. They were memories. Memories someone had tried to bury. The more he thought about it, the more pieces started falling into place. His file said he had survived an attack on Outpost 17, but the reports were vague. No one had ever explained how he had made it out alive. He had been found days later by a patrol, unconscious but unharmed, with no memory of what happened. Or so he had believed. Until now. Joran got dressed and made his way toward the command deck. The halls of the Lumina Drift were quiet. Most of the crew resting or reviewing the day's discussions. As he passed the observation deck, he found Commander Tava Roswell leaning against the railing, sipping from a steaming mug like always. She looked over at him with a raised brow. "You're up late," she said. "I could say the same for you," Joran replied. "Some of us don't need much sleep," she said with a small smile. "And others look like they haven't had any." Joran hesitated, then stepped beside her. "Tava, can I ask you something personal?" She glanced at him. "Go ahead. Do you believe memories can be changed? Like, erased or rewritten?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared out at the stars. "I've heard of tech that can scramble memory. Trauma can do that too. The brain has ways of protecting itself. Why? Joran looked down at his hands. Because I think someone erased part of mine, a big part, and I think I just started to remember it. Tava turned toward him, her expression more serious now. Do you think it has something to do with the regent? He nodded. I don't know how or why, but I think she was there when my colony was attacked. I think she saved me, and then made me forget. That's a lot to take in, she said gently. I know, he replied, but I need answers. Without waiting for her to respond, Joran turned and walked back down the hall. He didn't head to his room this time. He went straight to the guest chambers where the Etherean delegation was staying. 2 guards stood at the door, their silver uniforms reflecting the hallway lights. I need to speak with the regent, Joran said. She is not available, one of them replied. Tell her it's about Outpost 17, he said, his voice firm. She'll know what that means. The guards exchanged a glance, then one of them stepped inside. A few minutes passed, then the door opened again. She will see you. The room beyond was dimly lit, the walls curved and patterned in the flowing style of Etherean design. Tyen stood near a low table, her back to him. She didn't speak as he entered. Joran took a breath. You were there, weren't you? He asked quietly. She turned to face him, her expression calm but no longer cold. You remember. Pieces, he said. More every hour. She stepped forward, stopping just short of him. It was not supposed to happen this way. The memory was sealed for your protection. You were never meant to be involved in this world again. Why? He asked. Why save me at all? She hesitated. Because you were important, not to a prophecy or a mission, but to me. I saw what you could become, what you might bring to both our worlds, my people. They wanted you gone. A child born with unique potential, unpredictable, dangerous. I was sent to ensure your end. Joran stared at her, stunned. And instead you saved me. I broke our law, she said. I changed your path, hid you, erased what had been done, and I watched from afar as you grew into someone who could change the future. He tried to make sense of it. It was too much at once. Why now? Why bring me here? Because we've reached the point where you must choose, she said. You, remember, that means you're ready. Ready for what? To decide who you are, she said softly, and what you're willing to stand for. He felt the weight of her words settle on him like a cloak. The memories had come back, yes, but they had brought with them something more. Responsibility. He had been living a life shaped by someone else's choice. Now it was his turn to choose. I don't know what happens next, he said. Neither do I, Tyen replied. But that's the beauty of it. The future is still unwritten, and for the first time he believed her. The stars outside the observation deck shimmered in the endless dark, their light dancing across the curved glass. Joran stood in silence, staring at them, his reflection faint against the window. The hum of the Lumina drift was steady beneath his feet, a gentle reminder that the world moved forward even when your thoughts were stuck in the past. Behind him, the door slid open with a quiet hiss. He didn't need to turn to know who had entered. He could feel her presence before she spoke. You came, said Tyen, her voice calm, almost soft. I had to, Joran replied without looking at her. You asked to speak with me face to face. I figured that meant no more secrets. She stepped beside him, her tall figure quiet in its movement. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The stars stretched before them like distant memories. Then she spoke again, slower this time. There is something I must tell you. The truth I kept hidden. The truth even I tried to forget. Joran turned to her now, his face calm but alert. I'm listening. When the attack happened on your colony, she began, I wasn't just passing by. I was there for a reason. The Etherean Council had identified you as a variable, someone who shouldn't have existed. Your birth was never supposed to happen. Joran's eyebrows drew together. Why? I was just a child. You were more than that, she said. Somehow your existence disrupted the patterns we study. In our way of seeing, the future is like a river, sometimes wide, sometimes narrow, but with you the river broke. New paths appeared, unknown ones. That frightened the council. They believed you would bring chaos. Joran looked down, trying to take it all in. So they sent you to destroy me. Tyan nodded slowly. But when I found you, you were just a scared boy, clinging to hope in the middle of flames. I saw something in you, something that felt right. So I made a choice. I disobeyed my orders. I took you from the fire, brought you to safety, and erased the memory from your mind. I thought it would be enough, that you would live a normal life. He let out a quiet breath. I didn't, not really. I always felt something was missing. Like a shadow behind me I could never turn and face. And now that you've remembered, she said gently, you stand at a crossroads. Joran looked at her, his voice steady. What kind of crossroads? One where you decide what kind of future you want to help create, she said. The council no longer sees you as a threat. They see you as a tool, a way to influence humanity. They want you to join them, to become their bridge to your people. And if I don't, then they will find another way, Tyan said. Peace will be harder to build. The talks may still succeed, but without your voice, without your presence, the trust we're trying to build will be weaker. Joran leaned against the railing, thinking hard. All his life he had trained to be a diplomat, a negotiator. But this was something else entirely. This wasn't about representing humanity. This was about deciding who he was and who he wanted to be. I don't like being used, he said at last. I know, she replied. But I also don't like walking away from something that matters. If there's a chance I can help avoid war, if I can be part of something better, then I can't just turn my back. Tyan looked at him with something close to admiration. You would do it even after everything I hid from you. You made a mistake, he said. But you also saved me. And you gave me the truth even when it was hard. That counts for something. She gave a small nod. Then you accept? He paused, then nodded. Not as a tool, not as some prophecy, but as myself. I'll help, but on my terms. Of course, she said. That is all I hoped for. They stood in silence again, side by side, watching the stars. The moment stretched, quiet, and full of meaning. Joran felt lighter than he had in days. The confusion, the anger, the fear. It was still there, but now it had purpose. He hadn't been given an easy answer, but he had made his choice. I still don't know where this ends, he said quietly. Neither do I, Tyan replied. But perhaps that is what makes it worth doing. Joran smiled faintly. The future wasn't set, and for the first time, he realized that was a gift. He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, Tyan called out one last time. There will be more challenges ahead, Joran Hale, but now you walk with your eyes open. He glanced back at her, the woman who had once saved him from a fire, who had hidden his past, and now trusted him with her future. Then let's walk forward, he said. Together. And as the door slid shut behind him, the stars beyond the glass kept shining, steady and quiet, waiting for what came next.